Bienvenidos, welcome everybody. We are now starting the session on politics and masculinities. I'm just saying that I'm very glad to be moderating this session, chairing, and also speaking at this session. It's a theme very close to my heart. And I'm very happy to see that there is already very much interaction between policy, activism, and academia, which is also a theme very close to my heart. So we will discuss the theme of politics, which, as you will see, cuts transversally between the institutional, policy, activist, and theoretical levels. And we hope from the presentations that you will see also connections and transversalities between local level, community level, and more transnational level. I will start by presenting my own research project. To present myself, my name is Krizia Nardini. Originally, I come from Italy. I'm here in Barcelona as a PhD student. I work on a project on anthropology and gender, and I look at networks of men involved in gender-sensitive activism for gender equality. The focus of my work is Italy and Spain. After my presentation, we will have Alejo Durán from Huelva, from Spain, talking about AHIGE, la Asociación de Hombres por la Igualdad de Género. Will tell us a little bit about the history and the work that this association is doing and the way that he's involved in men's groups in his community. Then we will have Nicolás Cabezas and Sonia Lopez from Sant del Llobregat, which is a town just outside Barcelona, which will tell us, how they moved from, on a policy level, from gender mainstreaming to involve men and boys in the discourse of gender equality, and how they started a men's group there. Finally, we will have Stefano Ciccone from Italy, from member of the network Maschile Plurale, which is the Italian men's network working for gender justice, and from the University of Rome Tor Vergata, which will give us a presentation on the question of involving men in gender transformation and the challenges that this implies. So welcome everybody to this session. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that you will contribute at the end to our discussion. We decided to have each presentation and then open up the floor for Q&As to have a general conversation together. Okay. So, change my hat, this is me again. The question that we are touching today is the question of involving men or engaging men and boys in gender equality or gender justice, which is per se a political question because it touches super important points of gender justice, personal, political, theoretical level altogether. As you have seen, there is one presenter missing, and we are very sorry for that. She's Alice Camber, and she was supposed to talk about the institutional level of European policies and recent studies on involving men in gender equality. So we are missing this level, and we are very sorry, and we want to thank her for her commitment and for her work. But we hope that we're going to have anyway a good conversation together, more based on local cases and grassroots level. So the question of involving men in gender equality has been growing, a growing concern for the European Union, especially in the past 10 years, as witnessing with the study on the role of men in gender equality, European strategies as insights, which actually was supposed Ellie to present. From my perspective, working from the focus of activism and grassroots level, it's very important to point out that, again, gender justice is a political question, is a daily activities, and involves the everyday. We are always already involved in it. And however, we speak about involving men, so incluir los hombres en la igualdad de género, as if men and gender equality were two different spheres of actions and actors. However, men live and inhabit the everyday practice always already involve the interaction of men and women, femininities and masculinities, different identities, gender, sexes, orientations, intersecting with class, ethnicity, generation, cultural background, religion, and so forth. So, what does it mean that men need to be involved? Which men are we talking about? Let me take a step back. So, I understand that the idea has always been that gender equality is concerning with women and is a women's issue, because gender questions of equality are associated with other subjectivities, whose marginality has always been related with gender, sex, and sexual orientation. The struggle for equal rights and civil rights has been mainly mobilized by these social actors that stand at the margin while they were using their location for politics, making up movements, social movements, feminist movements, LGBT movements. So in the field of gender-related activism, what happened is that white, heterosexual masculinity, and especially middle-class white masculinities, has been invisible for a long time. And this normative position has been rarely, very rarely criticized by men themselves, or by these men that we're talking about. However, like recently, and especially since the late 70s, many men started to be interested in making a change, in contributing to gender justice, starting from questioning their own life as men, their own experiences. This shift of perspective enabled what we call masculinity politics, or more specifically, pro-feminist masculinity politics. With this term, I refer to the collective engagement of men taking action against sexism, promoting critical reflection on masculinity, organized initiative in favor of a positive change in their communities. So, this type of masculinity politics is feminist, pro-feminist, is also called gender justice work, ally work. It's locally grounded, globally connected, and includes a variety of activities: anti-violence campaigns, gender awareness campaigns, educational projects, promoting positive, non-violent, alternative, egalitarian masculinities, of course, collaborating with women's groups, feminist groups, LGBT groups, and so forth, trying to engage men in taking more caring and more implicated roles in fatherhood and care-related practices, and so forth. So as I said, Men for Gender Equality as activism started to exist during the 70s as a commitment to fighting especially sexism in the Anglo-Saxon and Scandinavian context, collaborating with women's movement and focusing mainly on fighting against gender-based violence, violence against women. They were sometimes a response to second-wave feminism. Others were growing from the civil rights movement, anti-racist and pacifist movement. They became more organized in anti-violence initiatives than in other cities of the world. More recently, Men for Feminist efforts are configured into networks, are more globally interconnected, and operates at the same time locally and regionally. Some notable examples, as you see here from what I show you, are the White Ribbon Campaign, the US-based National Organization of Men Against Sexism, Latin American Network of Masculinities. There are emerging networks in India, the Men Care Global Fatherhood Campaign, Sonke Gender Justice from South Africa, Promundo Global, and so forth. And Men Engage Global Alliance is gathering NGOs and initiatives from all over the world, connecting initiatives, campaigns, and grassroots groups involved in engaging men and boys in gender justice. As you see here, Men Engage. To tell you a little bit about this, Men Engage was founded in 2004 and is currently the broadest and growing alliance of NGOs. It's a human rights advocacy international body supported by the UN Women and the World Health Organization. And it's contributed to the increasing transnationalization and interconnection of initiatives that are locally coming up and connecting the grassroots with the more institutional levels. Addressing very important issues of gender-based violence, reproductive health, parenting, care, The framework of, as I said at the beginning, involving men in gender equality, and as I like to call it, gender justice work, sees men not only as part of the problem, but also as part of the solution. This is kind of the motto that we are working with. So it's very important to think as masculine men and boys as change agents, so able to contribute to social transformation starting from themselves. The global dimension of these organizations, as you see here, are networks and lead us facing inequalities not only on a personal community level, but also on a transnational level. As I said, recently, and especially in the past, I would say 4 or 5 years, we can see an increase in global networking in which these NGOs are partnered with global agency, community initiatives, and programs, which are also globalized, and they do influence policies and legislations. So an example could be the Man Care campaign on fatherhood and egalitarian masculinities. Zooming into the European context, the question where masculinities are standing in relation to gender equality has been a pressing issue, not only on a policy level, as in the strategy for equality between women and men, but also in institutionalized and especially non-institutionalized settings. There has been also the putting together of Men Engage Europe, and I'm part of that as a researcher, and which is growing every day more and more. And especially after the board meeting that was held in Zagreb last year. In my own work, I use an ethnographic approach and extensive field work to investigate, to do research among the members of the network Maschile Plurale in Italy, and among the members of the movement Hombres por la Igualdad in Spain here, and especially AHIGE, which you will listen about in a minute. Each case has different stories, genealogies, theories, mobilizing questions, themes that they discuss, and problems faced by the actors. My thesis also wants to give a map of the challenges that they're facing, and this kind of work, what I call gender justice work, men involved in this kind of activism are facing. And here I wanted to give you some common traits that I see in this kind of specific type of activism. So as we know, the primary expression of this form of political engagement is fighting against gender-based violence, which is called anti-violence activism. Is a kind of pro-feminist masculinity politics, as I called at the beginning, and men are interrogated as gendered subjects. So they are actors of gender norms and subjects of social change. It's very important to see that this type of activism asks for a reconfiguration of norms that are embedded at a very personal level. So doing anti-violence activism cannot go without self-questioning or a very deep reflection on the meanings and the practices of masculinities that affect each of us, including me, because gender is relational. It's a difficult kind of work. Involves, as I said, an internal focus. It's contradictory sometimes, has a lot of challenges and tensions. For heterosexual white men, doing gender justice work is necessary and full of tensions if taken seriously, because gender inequalities are intimately tied to men's practices and identities, and men's participation in complex gender relations. There is one challenge that is faced by this type of activism, which is how to reach other men. As we know, this is very important because in a patriarchal gender order, let's call it that way, Despite the geopolitical differences and intersection of differences, men are seen as holding the power as cultural gatekeepers. So, as for example, decision makers, community leaders, or holding a symbolic power of deciding the situation symbolically. So, it's very important to reach other men, and this has been an issue, like how to involve other men in the conversation. One answer is to, at the same time, addressing men's costs, so the costs of masculinities, the negative outcomes of sexism on men's lives in terms, for example, health, emotional well-being, emotional expressions, and at the same time, addressing the gains that men can have when starting a process of self-questionings and activism. For men to really participate in gender justice work is a personal political journey of self-interrogation and self-transformation. Talking to boys and men's sense of frustration, for example, or their sense of marginalization for some types of masculinities can be a trigger for engaging them into social and gender justice commitments. And we should redirect these feelings away from the risk of affecting men's relationship with women or fueling sexist sentiments or racist sentiments and aggressive reactions. In some other cases, for example, as we see, for example, especially in the case of South Europe, the problem of unemployment among men and consequent men's frustration has been associated with an increase of violence against women. So talking to these kind of sentiments and addressing men's costs and gains is very important in order to reach other men, in order to involve them in the conversation. Concluding, main responsibility in pro-feminist masculinity politics is actually facing the power, of course, that men hold in society and their personal life as a man. I see the word power not only as something that we have, as something that we do, actually. And power, there is also, inside the word power, there is also this element of potential. So is power intended here as privilege, but also power as potential for change? So it must be a combination of like a questioning perspective, critical perspective, but also a creative perspective. Reading from the Italian case, for example, reading from the Italian case, which is this, they say, we see violence around us, but we also see a desire for change. We choose to fight the violence and to listen to this desire. So I see very important, there is a power for making men change agents in their desire, in their sentiments for thinking the possibility of doing differently. However, these remain very difficult because it involves, as I said, a questioning perspective and a creative perspective, and has tensions, challenges, and involves the everyday, in which the politics is always a transversality between the personal, the political, and the thinking of masculinities. So, to conclude, I would say it's not an easy task, but it's something that we need to do. Thank you.
Buenos días, buenas tardes, más bien.
None, should I say. I speak Andalusian. I don't know if there's simultaneous interpretation from Andalusian into English or Spanish. Yes, there is, of course. If the interpreter has any difficulties in understanding some of the words I say, please let me know and I will make an effort to speak Spanish as well. Anyway, I came here to listen, but they asked me, Paco Abril asked me to talk to you about AHIGE. I've been in AHIGE for the last 8 years, the only Spanish association that respect that can be found in all the areas of Spain. We have partners in Latin America as well, Brazil, Mexico. If I talk to you about the history of AHIGE, I'll tell you that it was born amongst a group of men in the year 2001. And this generated the basis of our association, because what is personal is political, we say. So personal labor is crucial to offer a social message as well. Men, if personally we haven't worked on our masculinity, we haven't questioned and deconstructed and reconstructed our masculinity, things will be tough when launching the right message. This will be a message with no content, with no emotional content, I mean. This group of men decided to take a step forward and take the type of transformation they had experienced in the sessions of the group. So we created our association, the Association of Men for Gender Equality. Our association's goals are to work against the structural discrimination which the male chauvinist society impose mainly on women and non-heterosexual men. This is one of the goals. Of this patriarchal chauvinist society, very complex, but we are working hard on it. Another work, which is even more important for me, is to favor the change of men's attitudes towards a more favorable positioning with respect to equality. Equality is not only going to favor women, but also it's going to favor men themselves. It's going to favor society in general. Another goal is to create networks of men which favors and counsels groups of men, which, as I said, is the basis of AHIGE. In fact, we, as an association, believe that we are a group of men. AHIGE is called our kid, our baby girl, and we are the parent of this baby girl. The biological parents that created the baby girl, but other are adoptive parents. And we are a big family. When something happens within the association, in one of the members' lives, well, you know, we all go there and try to give company and care and support. So we are a group of human beings, a group of persons with feelings, with very strong emotional connections. And we are highly scattered, I must say, but in any case, this is a human capital that very few people have. When men approach us and they become members of our association, they find something they have not really found in other associations. In fact, the age average of our members is quite high, between 40 and 50 years of age. Men who've gone through different unions, political parties, associations of different origins and nature, and when we reach and when they reach our association, they find a different space, a different way of talking, a different way of communicating, of debating and agreeing, which is different from what they had experienced. We usually do it through via consensus, and we don't tend to generate any conflicts or arguments. If you visit our website, you'll see what I'm going to review now, the basic lines of AHIGE, which are three. personal elements, personal work, which, as we could hear before, is the core of our association. Groups of men. Within our association, we have a virtual group of men, because most men are integrated in groups of thought about the masculine condition. Others don't have these spaces. And we have created this virtual group. We communicate online. Then we can share many personal stories, a great deal of emotions, as much as we can. The way of working of AHIGE, a participative democracy, we don't have a hierarchical structure. Legally, we have a president, we have a secretary, and a treasurer, but functionally ours is a totally horizontal structure. We have an internet democracy, and when we meet in congresses or meetings or whatever, everything is highly transversal. Proposals are very horizontal, and that's the way we work. We have a website which we are about to change. You can have access to it, and you can see all the content. We also have another page in Facebook with more than 10,000 followers, both men and women, many of them coming from Latin America and from Spain. And in YouTube, we also have a YouTube channel. Well, before I forgot something. The basic lines of action also include the technical and professional line of action. We intervene via workshops in prisons, with groups of men in different municipalities, workshops in school centers. We also work with giving chats in different congresses and seminars and work sessions. We do research work. Some colleagues of ours work at the issue of the new paternity. We've done some research work about what is being done. And this is something that is undertaken by historians, people who are part of our association, and people who have worked in the feminist movements after the French Revolution till now. So this is a work of a compilation work of these men, of these feminist men who have supported feminism. The social issue, the social importance includes creating alternative models of men. These models should be developed in schools, trying to have young men who are empowered with alternative models, where young men and women can use this work as a reference. Usually the reference is the classical young chauvinist man and the pretty girl next to him. So we should create some new alternative models. Juan has just told me about the work he's organized about this in Barcelona, and also making things more visible, relating men and the new models. We also have different programs. One of them is very powerful, which is called SAMA, Service of Support Against Male Chauvinist Attitudes. We have a hotline addressed to young men and women and to their parents. A sexology hotline where they can ask about issues that they believe are of their interest. A website where we can see different guidelines about different topics, co-responsibility, mobbing, and well, you name it. We also have another program called Corresponde, which supports the co-responsibility in the home chores and shared care. With different materials. Our structure is the territorial federal structure. We have delegations in most territories. We have delegations that are more numerous. The biggest is in Andalusia. In Catalonia we have many people, and here people are very active. It's called Egalitarian Men. In Madrid we have people who are very young and who are, you know, giving a boost to AHIGE in Madrid. And in the Canary Islands we also have very active friends who do a lot of things. Ultimately we have published a book called Men for the 21st Century. A different set of experiences of AHIGE members. We have 19 different experiences. We have compiled them in the last 3 or 4 years. It took us a long time to publish it, but finally we're able to make it. This reflects personal experiences on how men have reached the situation through gender equality is their place. Sharing care is the attitude they had to follow. And each one of us have reached this position, this situation through different ways. Some men did so because their partner was a feminist and they felt compelled to it. Other men have different sexual orientations. Men that because they didn't feel comfortable in their hegemonic masculinity, try to find another place. Maybe this is my case. I also have a feminist wife who keeps me on my toes. And this is how it works. So I'd recommend you to read this book as well. We have a virtual training, a virtual classroom where we teach men who have violent attitudes. We couldn't organize it this year. We had a restructuring of our association. Well, I'm running out of time, I'm being told. So we'll have workshops, live chats. We have changed methodologies in each one of our territorial perspectives. We'll organize a next session in the Canary Islands, and well, we also have social action, which is a roundtable with men. It has a great deal of a great impact mediatically. We have the Egalitarian Father's Day, something we have just started, and we are going to support it. And we have another date, which is the Day Against Homophobia, the 3 milestones that we have then that connect us with the LGTB movement and with the new fraternity. And we also are also working in Menke and Pina. So let me finish by saying that the issue that really motivates me is working with groups of men. I live in Aracena, a small town with 3 groups of men, with 28 men in total. And the transformation we have witnessed in these groups, what men find in these men's groups is something which can be observed as quite spectacular. They don't actually believe it. When men get in touch with each other and they live these type of experiences, and they let others love them, and they allow themselves to be vulnerable and feeble, this masculine hegemonity disintegrates, and this is the area that gives me the most in my work, to see how men become softer and they become better, turn into better persons. We say in AHIGE that men are still pending to generate their own revolution, but we'll get there. Thank you.
Mi nombre es
Hello, good morning. I am Sonia. I work
de Llobregat junto a
of Sant de
la mesa y no sé, yo os explico lo que he preparado para comentaros. De mí tengo poco que decir. Soy Sonia, mujer, 38 años, madre de mellizos que me llevan loca y que me han hecho retornar a aquello que Alejo.
And they make me go back to what Alejo was talking about, the self-reflection, self-awareness groups through maternity. There's a before and after. I was talking about it with Nico. Before, as a feminist woman who had a public administration job post, and without realizing I was reproducing masculine models of that more prevailing masculinity. And then Sonia gets pregnant, and after maternity she goes back to finding her woman's self, and from that point onwards she starts analyzing life, environment and gender relations in a different way. And I'm going to talk about that. There's also a Sonia before pregnancy, and how I saw masculinity movements and how I see it right now. Probably if I had talked about this 3 years ago, my babies are 3 years old, well, my speech would be much more of a dichotomy in the masculine-feminine relationship, and also the feminist movement and new masculinity movement. Right now, at a professional and personal level, I've been able to see the new masculinity movements as a necessary ally, something that I cannot do without, so that we can all have a more fair and equality society. But anyway, I'll keep it here, because otherwise I will have no time to talk. First of all, I would like to say, I would like to excuse myself because the PowerPoint is in Catalan, but it's better to talk in Spanish. Paco was talking at the beginning of today's session that the idea is to link the academia research to activism. Nick and myself are going to talk about the experience of the municipality where we work, and based on that experience, we're going to try and connect the equality institutional policies with the equality association movements, both feminism and new masculinity. In the Sant City Council, when we started working on the gender equality policies, we were focusing on a quote of Bustelo, a researcher from Madrid. She says that gender equality policies are those kind of objectives and measures, intentions that are adopted by public powers to promote women and gender equality. This is important because of what I was telling you at the beginning. We talk about promoting the position of women, and also we talk about the gender equality policies. And I would like to say something that has been mentioned this morning. We use these two as a synonym, and it's not the same thing. And if we use it as a synonym, maybe we will just limiting ourselves to promote one gender on top of the other. And this is not an equality gender policy which is well implemented along these lines. So based on this quote of Bustelo of promoting the situation of women and gender equality, institutionally speaking, and not just in the City Council of Sant Boi, because this has been done in different city councils, here in the Deputy Council of Barcelona, because we've been working together with them as well. We started developing some strategies at the beginning of the 80s, and also coming from these self-reflection groups, feminist women did and that our greater feminists did, we started working on the policies of equality of opportunity, gender equality. We soon realized that this was not enough, that we needed strategies of positive actions to have at the same level the situation of men and women, because the starting point was inequality, so we shouldn't just work on equal opportunities. And then we went for gender mainstreaming, which is one of the concepts that we introduced, and then the dual strategy. Positives and negatives of the different strategies. Well, if we just focus on equality of opportunities, we cannot just promote this if we live in a society which is non-equal in its basis, because it's impossible to tackle that. Positive action policies were done very often through quota system. So then in the list of political parties, we have both men and women, and in most governments, there's 40% of women's representation. Thanks to these policies, we have some women in government. But through these policies, we realize that we cannot just do this exclusively based on women versus men, because there's vertical and horizontal segregation in both genders, especially horizontal segregation. In Samboy, we started working along these lines because we had always been working on the promotion of women, but then based on the collaboration with the Deputy Council in Barcelona, we developed a new plan in the city councils, and we realized that the representation of men and women is equal, 52% women, 48% men. That's in the vertical segregation, but in the horizontal segregation, you know, that's different, because we shouldn't just have more police women or town planner women, because in those city councils where there's more women, such as, for example, social workers, etc., these are fields that are totally feminized, and that has an impact as well in a guy from a neighborhood who starts having typical problems that adolescents have when they develop themselves as a man. So when they go to the social worker, they just meet a woman, but they don't have a masculine reference point that could guide him. So in political positive actions, that's good to promote women, but we also have to use that to promote men and new masculinity models that can be good and used as an example for young men. Gender mainstreaming, as you know, in all of the public policies that we do from the administration, we want that to have a gender impact. So we want them to have the point of view of the purple glasses as we talk that. And that needs to have the same impact in education, social policy, town planning, etc. And finally, the dual strategy is trying to combine both. If we do not have equal society both for men and women, we will need to have positive action policies, and at the same time we need to take into account the gender mainstreaming or gender transversality. When I was preparing today's presentation, I was thinking about the limitations of gender mainstreaming. I mean, what are we finding if we see the situation? Well, conceptually, gender mainstreaming means that we take into account the gender impact, so the impact both in men and women. But are we doing this in the administration, or are we just only promoting the situation of women? And I am a woman, I am a feminist, I am a political subject, but I'm giving some self-criticism here. We cannot use concepts such as gender mainstreaming, saying that we are including the gender point of view in all of the policies, but now we women, we're forgetting 50% of humanity. We did criticize that they were living as a site, but we should not repeat the same mistake. And what should we do to take into account all of the men and women category in the implementation, evaluation, and follow-up of public policies? Well, right now in Samboy, as an institution, I want you to participate all. Next Tuesday, we will do the first sessions on new Masculinities in Sant. Well, we were setting lots of excuses so as not to celebrate this. The first time that a collaborator told me that we had to work on new masculinities, I just said, "Are you crazy?" But then we started, putting excuses to avoid that, because we just wanted to promote women. So the first excuse was the neighborhood legislation. Nico will talk about this more in depth. And in Axis 6, this was a project of an integral promotion of the neighborhood, but it needed to have a social impact, not just town planning impact. And in Axis 6, they were talking about gender equality policies. And we did not work the new masculinities there because years have gone by and we were just putting excuses so as not to tackle that. But it has helped us anyway to get to where we are right now in a clear manner. So we were analyzing the use of space based on genders and vital cycle. Here I was talking about the hour distribution that men and women devote to productive work. Men spend 3 hours. This is just general figures. I just have 2 more minutes? Oh my goodness. Anyway, I don't manage time well. Anyway, if you deem it appropriate, I can give you this. So the equality plan, this was a turning point, because in the equality plan, we wanted positive actions to avoid vertical and horizontal segregation. And we wanted to work with entities, but with a clear objective. We didn't just want to promote women. We didn't want to exclusively focus on gender policies focusing on women. We wanted to work on policies aimed at men, and we wanted to see how this could help us to collaborate and transform our society. And then we reached co-education. At the beginning, we started implementing from 0 to 3, so this is at kindergarten. We started implementing this there, and we've also implemented this in non-formal education activities that we do, in festivities, a campaign that we do every year to give non-sex-safe toys. So we work on this kind of policies. We are going to work on co-education with kids and also with fathers and mothers. We do not work on new masculinities, but every time we find more boys and girls, especially adolescent girls, 12 and 13, who come to the young point of information and they have a pregnancy that they do not want, and the relationship there is a toxic relationship, and the masculinity models there are the traditional ones, the patriarch, the hegemony, one gender on top of the other. So without even wanting it, we have been working on these masculinity issues. This campaign, for example, it's very good. It focuses on young kids and these toxic relationships that starts in adolescence and pre-adolescence. And this is our point right now. In our municipality, we have programmed for the first time, and we did this at the beginning of November. We started an online course to think about masculinity, and I need to tell you that there were 20 seats and we have 114 requests to attend the course. So this is a good path. We couldn't just work on policies aimed at women. So it's very successful, lots of interest. We just have 20 seats and we have the other people in a waiting list. And we want to work together with the colleagues from AHIGE so that we can make them participate in other courses that are being done. As Juanjo mentioned, this is a very powerful course that we've done together with the collaboration of the Deputy Council of Barcelona. And the truth is that it is a very good course. And finally, as I was telling you, we have the session of masculinity and violence. It's the first session that we will organize like this. We will have a main speech, and then we will have 3 experiences of colleagues, friends, who were working with men who were aggressive, who were chauvinistically aggressive, and now they've gone through evolution and transformation, and we can work with them so as to go beyond that hegemonic masculinity. And now I will give the floor to Nico, because he asked me that we should have 50% time. Hello, good afternoon. First of all, on behalf of Hombres Igualitarios Group of Savoy, I wanted to thank the organizers for having invited me to this experience. I'm not usually in such an academic context such as this one, but I would like to suggest something. As for language, this speech, such as others, you know, we prepared it in Catalan, and we know that the organization doesn't have a bad intention along these lines, but I would like to say that on behalf of the resources, etc., the language of this country is minoritized, and I believe that in an area such as ours, where we know what it means to be minoritized, this is something that we should take into account for the future. So this is just a suggestion. So going back to Sonia's words, I started working in this field 7 or 8 years ago, and I was working in this context that Sonia was talking about in a peripheral neighborhood of Samboy. We were working on a comprehensive plan, and when working in this plan, where there were different axes and actions that had to be undertaken, we saw how the social field, which was also quite limited, well, we saw there that the city council there was fostering this social issue so that it could become important in a macro project that really had to do with a lot of town planning. But we found our space, an important space for the social element. So at that time, me and the team that we were working there, well, in that time there was a feminist, a girl, who helped us see things. As many times it is a girl that makes us see things. And there was a feminist girl there who started making us shift our point of view. And also, in this case, I got in touch with AHIGE, El Grup d'Homes Igualitaris in Catalonia, and we started working. We started working in that comprehensive plan. And there we started to try and have a global point of view of what was being done in the neighborhood. Town planning, economic, social issues, economic promotion issues. We wanted to have a gender point of view on all of that. You can imagine what happened at that time. And here I want to mention that at some point the neighborhood started participating in those sessions that were linked with the new social uses of time, as Sonia was saying there. And in the neighborhood, men, women, associations and citizens who had never participated, well, all of a sudden they started thinking about what's the role of time, the role of gender in time distribution. And from this starting point, we were developing new ideas, and we were thinking about how we could have a gender look in any town planning intervention. And here we had the participation of people to design safe spaces, and here I'm talking about spaces where an important part of the neighborhood could feel comfortable and well integrated in the territory. And this is just one of the many activities that were being carried out in the neighborhood. We were also working with the schools, with the football coaches, the football fields, with parents, and Dani Gavarros was really helping us a lot along these lines, so that all of these could have a clear projection and for us to treat these gender issues in the adequate fashion. And this is how, from the neighborhood, from these grassroots levels, we started working with transversality. This is a tool that we used in Samboy. There's certain inertia. Well, we have already 400 associations. Some are more active than others, some have a greater projection than others, but the truth is that there is this inertia. People like working in an association, and when we work, we like working as an association. So when we started thinking about new masculinity, this transversality was a good tool that we used. By this I mean that when all of this was being developed in the neighborhood, with all of these activities, at the same time we started having a relationship with the Association Homes Igualitaris de Catalunya. And then we started thinking about why not having, since there's Rodes de Dones, why not doing a Rodes d'Home in Samboy? And this is why we decided that all of the associations of that neighborhood and other parts of the city, it would be good that we could have like this men gathering. And now I can show you some images that somehow depicts the spirit, the philosophy of our association. The first gathering was done from this point of view. We wanted to do this, and we wanted this to have a continuity. At the beginning, we just wanted to have a gathering in the City Council Square, and we were just expecting 40 men. But in that first occasion, we have like 200 people. You will see this in the pictures. And from this point onwards, the group started considering if we had to continue our activities, if we have to have other activities that were not just gatherings.
We obviously didn't have any intentions of turning into a group of regular or conventional egalitarian men. 5 years went by. The first time we tried it as a test, and thanks to that support, which was of great help for us, we considered, well, we didn't actually turn into an association. We didn't have any official bylaws, but people, we tried to make people feel comfortable about their own personal process, and no people are more or less advanced than others. We actually base our actions on the rationale of these groups of men that exist in different areas of our country. That's what we do now. We've been undertaking or organizing different events that have to do with awareness-raising campaigns that have to do with majoritarian actions. But we also reflected on the frustration we have as a group, because presently our group is not well, we're not going beyond our boundaries. We should probably take care of or cover other areas like health, sexuality, etc. We attempted to do that. It didn't actually work. And we decided to continue on that line. We lived that with a certain degree of normality. And just let me finish by saying that what we have not done yet, because this is not our own reivindication, considering that we have a representative of the City Council of Barcelona. And we talked to her, and we know that it's very clear in her mind is to see how we can incorporate men's policies to the institutions. And in the case of the City Council of Sant, in our group, we don't see this as a real need. We look more like an NGO that feels close to the feminist ideals, being critical with the masculine hegemonic model. So we still have a long way to go. Thank you.
Come on, skinny love, just let's sing it. To pour a little soul we will never eat. My, 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 my. Staring at the sink of blood across the way.
Thanks to Krizia, Begonia, Paco, and Franco to inviting me. Yo no hablo español and my English is stable, so I present my contribution in Italian and thanks for translation. I hope you can understand my speech. I not prepared a PowerPoint presentation, but I propose you some images for a preliminary issues before my speech, because questo nostro incontro si svolge sotto una nuvola, e questa è la nuvola della guerra, del terrorismo dopo Parigi, della xenofobia, e questi temi sono tra loro collegati alla mascolinità. La violenza maschile contro le donne è usata in Italia anche per rafforzare il richiamo alla mascolinità tradizionale. Questa è the first page of newspaper, national newspaper Italian, after Paris. And this is a demonstration of a fascist movement in Italian against the order. No? The order, we have to defend our women. proteggiamo le nostre donne, no? La mascolinità egemone si compone di diversi elementi, come diceva Claire Duncanson, che sono solo apparentemente in contraddizione tra di loro: violenza e controllo sulle donne, autocontrollo maschile, protezione delle donne e demonizzazione dell'altro. Sono parti della stessa cultura. Ecco, io credo che sarebbe importante produrre oggi un appello europeo di uomini contro la guerra, contro il razzismo e la xenofobia, che dica che questi sono frutti del patriarcato, e tenere insieme queste campagne. Ma ora passo al mio intervento. Come vedete, this is against bullyism campaign in Italy. L'ultimo anno è stato un anno difficile per la rete italiana di Maschile Plurale, una rete di uomini che da circa 30 anni hanno avviato una riflessione critica sulle relazioni tra i sessi, sulla costruzione sociale dei ruoli e delle attitudini maschili e sulla violenza di genere. Pur crescendo l'autorevolezza e l'interesse pubblico nei nostri confronti, sono emerse una diffidenza verso di noi e una domanda sul senso di questa esperienza, che credo offra spunti per una riflessione più generale in Italia, in Spagna e in Europa. La prima questione, la prima obiezione riguarda il fondamento di un impegno maschile contro la violenza, contro il sessismo e contro il patriarcato, ed è una domanda di interesse generale. Perché degli uomini dovrebbero battersi contro un sistema che offre loro potere e privilegi? Chi sono questi uomini in sala? Chi sono gli uomini presenti? Uomini buoni e solidali? Uomini migliori degli altri che giudicano gli errori degli altri uomini? L'appello promosso da Maschile Plurale in Italia alcuni anni fa si intitolava «La violenza contro le donne ci riguarda». Quest'anno abbiamo toccato con mano la verità di questa affermazione. Infatti un aderente a Maschile Plurale è stato accusato dalla propria compagna di atteggiamenti svalutanti e di violenza psicologica. E questo ha rappresentato un momento difficile per tutti noi, per tutta la rete di Maschile Plurale, ma ha anche confermato, a mio parere, la giustezza del nostro approccio alla violenza. La violenza, noi diciamo, non è una patologia che possiamo relegare altrove, che possiamo spostare fuori. Riguarda tutti, è parte di una cultura condivisa e per contrastarla non possiamo porci come uomini migliori che condannano gli uomini violenti, ma dobbiamo fare un percorso di analisi della dimensione controversa dei nostri desideri, della dimensione contraddittoria delle nostre relazioni, delle nostre aspettative rispetto alle donne. Ecco, qui si pone un'altra questione generale che emerge dal dibattito italiano, ma che riguarda tutti. È possibile coniugare radicalità e complessità? Troppo spesso in rete, di fronte alla violenza, ma anche su questioni come la prostituzione, il desiderio di esprimere la propria indignazione, la propria ricerca di radicalità, portano spesso a mettere da parte la complessità di questi fenomeni, a mettere da parte il carattere controverso delle dinamiche relazionali. Le relazioni sono sempre controverse. Radicalità non vuol dire tagliare corto, cercare soluzioni definitive, ma invece vuol dire andare alla radice dei fenomeni. Ecco, denunciare che la violenza maschile contro le donne è parte di una cultura condivisa non vuol dire, riconoscere questa come un dato a cui dobbiamo adeguarci, dobbiamo abituarci, no? Pensare che la violenza non è una devianza non è un modo per rappresentarla come accettabile, ma piuttosto per chiedere di mettere in discussione la cultura diffusa da cui parte la violenza. Emerge allora evidentemente un'obiezione ancora più profonda, che riguarda il senso stesso di un percorso maschile. È possibile costruire una pratica maschile di critica del patriarcato? Gli uomini possono essere attori della trasformazione? Spesso il dibattito si limita al coinvolgimento degli uomini nel contrasto alla violenza, cosa importante, oppure al loro impegno solidale contro le discriminazioni di genere. È possibile invece partire dal desiderio di libertà degli uomini? È possibile fare leva sulla ricerca di una diversa qualità delle loro vite, delle loro relazioni e non solo sul volontarismo etico? Ecco, il movimento gay è storicamente un movimento parte della critica al modello patriarcale dominante. Quindi, quando parlo di uomini eterosessuali. Il nodo riguarda evidentemente gli uomini eterosessuali e la credibilità di un impegno di questi uomini eterosessuali per la trasformazione di una norma che pone il maschio eterosessuale al vertice di un sistema di poteri e di valori. Ma allora l'unica soggettività conflittuale di trasformazione possibile è quella di chi fa esperienza della soggezione, di chi è discriminato? Solo chi è discriminato può essere un soggetto della trasformazione? Io ritengo che l'esperienza di un soggetto, l'uomo, che agisce un conflitto a partire dalla propria internità al sistema, a essere dentro un sistema di potere, può rappresentare un interessante contributo alla riflessione sui temi del potere e del conflitto e alla costruzione di pratiche sociali di trasformazione più capaci di affrontare la complessità, più mature, più consapevoli. Per costruire questa riflessione, per pensare possibile una pratica maschile di critica del patriarcato, abbiamo infatti bisogno di strumenti teorici specifici, diversi. Dobbiamo innanzitutto ripensare i temi del potere e del conflitto. Cambiano se li guardiamo come uomini. Dopo Foucault, dopo Bourdieu, dopo Gramsci, dopo Judith Butler, non possiamo più considerare il potere come una semplice istituzione oppressiva fuori di noi. Non c'è un'estraneità possibile. La condizione di soggezione, di discriminazione, non è garanzia di alterità. Come osserva Judith Butler, come osserva Donna Haraway, i soggiogati non sono innocenti, i discriminati non sono innocenti. Allora, costruire un conflitto con un ordine del quale non possiamo dirci estranei e dal quale sappiamo di ricevere i dividendi del potere, i dividendi del patriarcato di cui ha parlato Connell, costringe a una consapevolezza che forse ci mette al riparo dalle semplificazioni che hanno segnato troppo spesso i movimenti di opposizione. Come dice Judith Butler, il soggetto che agisce questo conflitto è un soggetto opaco a se stesso, non consapevole di sé, il cui desiderio resta a lui stesso indecifrabile. Ma questa condizione non riguarda solo gli uomini eterosessuali, riguarda tutti e tutte, anche coloro che non corrispondono alla norma eterosessuale. Non solo, provare a pensare il cambiamento simbolico, cambiamento nelle relazioni, cambiamento nelle dinamiche di potere, nei meccanismi di inclusione e di esclusione. Pensare il cambiamento essendo un maschio bianco, sano, eterosessuale, produttivo, adulto, non fornisce a me alibi né semplificazioni, non mi permette rivendicazioni che non si misurino con il potere che ho, continuamente con il mio potere. E quindi anche il rapporto tra riflessione accademica e attivismo si pone per i men's studies in modo differente da quello che è stato per gli studi femministi e per i gay studies. Questi studi nascevano dalla scorta di una pratica sociale diffusa, dal femminismo gay, dal movimento LGBT. La riflessione teorica sulla mascolinità, invece, assume in genere gli uomini come oggetto della riflessione, come argomento. Ma è possibile una ricerca teorica che sia anche il frutto di una domanda maschile di svelamento dei condizionamenti sociali della vita degli uomini? In questa conferenza noi parliamo di uomini al plurale e di maschilità al plurale. E qui si pone un'altra domanda. È possibile una riflessione critica, una pratica conflittuale che assuma l'esperienza maschile nella sua pluralità, etero, gay, ma anche con le tante mascolinità differenti? È possibile, cioè, costruire un discorso e una pratica che assumano come terreno di critica, conflitto e trasformazione la mascolinità intesa come contesto plurale, ma al tempo stesso comune a tutti gli uomini? Questa domanda pone due questioni. La prima riguarda la necessità di ripensare il concetto di mascolinità egemonica, non come mera gerarchia tra mascolinità o gerarchia degli uomini sulle donne, ma anche come contesto egemonico pervasivo. Se questo è vero, ad esempio, non basta vedere le relazioni gerarchiche tra differenti mascolinità, ma diventa necessario produrre una critica dei riferimenti simbolici che strutturano in forme diverse tutte le mascolinità, etero e omosessuali. E quindi la seconda questione riguarda proprio il riconoscimento di elementi trasversali tra differenti esperienze maschili. Quella a cui faccio riferimento, Maschile Plurale, la rete italiana, è un movimento di maschi, anche eterosessuali e gay, che tenta di mettere in discussione non solo l'eteronormatività, ma anche il simbolico fallico che, a mio parere, costruisce e imprigiona l'esperienza maschile del corpo e le relazioni degli uomini tra loro e con le donne. Ma il simbolico fallico, proprio perché è pervasivo, segna anche l'immaginario di sessualità non eterosessuali, segna anche l'immaginario del mondo gay. È a mio parere quindi necessario un lavoro teorico, politico ed esistenziale di rottura con una sessualità fallica, con un binarismo attivo-passivo, soggetto-oggetto, con una sessualità associata a un simbolico di potere e una rappresentazione scissa del corpo come strumento, che propone il corpo maschile come uno strumento di potere. Questa rappresentazione del corpo maschile è alla base del potere maschile, ma è anche fonte di alienazione per gli uomini. Impoverisce la nostra sessualità e le nostre relazioni. È dunque necessario produrre una pratica politica e una riflessione teorica che rimettano al centro il corpo non come un destino, ma nemmeno come una lavagna bianca a disposizione di una soggettività disincarnata, un corpo invece che fa resistenza alla costruzione linguistica e simbolica che subisce. Lo scavo critico nelle rappresentazioni del corpo e della sessualità non riguardano solo gli orientamenti sessuali, ma interrogano tutte le soggettività. Se andiamo su questo piano scopriamo che appunto anche nel mondo gay e nella sessualità gay è necessario un lavoro di destrutturazione del simbolico fallico. Qui si pone un'ultima ulteriore domanda. La sessualità, le esperienze sessuali che non corrispondono alla norma eterosessuale, possono essere oggetto di riflessione critica e di conflitto anche al loro interno? Ecco, la prospettiva queer nasce essenzialmente su una critica al rischio di inclusione e di normalizzazione del movimento LGBT, ridursi alla richiesta di diritti e di forme di cittadinanza in un contesto di cui non si mettono in discussione i fondamenti. Ma il movimento queer nasce anche per contrastare una deriva identitaria delle soggettività LGBT. Questa sollecitazione credo può essere assunta pienamente proprio dalla riflessione della pratica maschile e dalla pratica maschile eterosessuale, che non può, per evidenti motivi, stare in una prospettiva rivendicativa, perché ha il potere, e non può neanche essere tentata dalla pulsione identitaria, dall'orgoglio. La giornata dell'orgoglio etero sarebbe evidentemente un controsenso, no? Rispetto all'orgoglio, al pride omosessuale. E allora è possibile andare oltre la prospettiva di una semplice moltiplicazione delle differenze e di frammenti che non si mettono in discussione tra loro reciprocamente, ma che si limitano alla necessaria rivendicazione di diritti? Ecco, io credo sia necessario riconoscere la sessualità e il nesso tra corpo e soggettività come terreno politico conflittuale di trasformazione mai risolto per nessuno. E questo ci chiede di ripensare continuamente ai meccanismi di potere di cui siamo al tempo stesso oggetto e artefici. Si tratta di un terreno ovviamente tutto aperto e ancora da esplorare, di confronto tra prospettive politiche differenti di donne e uomini che forse anche oggi possono cominciare a parlare insieme. Grazie.